Let's see, record. And welcome so much to the CWCT students who have taken their time out tonight on a Wednesday. We've now confirmed to come and join us for our third iteration of our fireside chats, a little homage to FDR, but also an opportunity for us to provide workshops that cover the other stuff. Y'all know that in CWCT, you are either learning about forensics or systems administration, AI, or specifically you're in a Python course or you're in your A+ course and you just started. That's awesome. Those hard skills are great. These soft skills that you're going to learn about today and that you have learned about in other various workshops and everything, I just want to reiterate, we provide really great educational content. We do. We have a great certificate program, good record of success, and it's a pretty good deal. However, getting that job, the next step of it, and transitioning to further promotions and jobs is all about the networking. We talk about it a lot in our orientations, in our workshops, in our career fairs that we host. And with all of that kind of convalescing or kind of all being a part of LinkedIn and social media, for lack of a better term nowadays, that's something that employers use. So a lot of you have a LinkedIn. If you don't have one, don't worry. This is a great opportunity to get one for the first time. I didn't even use mine a lot until this position. And I would share, I just started a new position. I'll be part-time with CWCT. And part of it was through LinkedIn networking for my new job. Actually, predominantly the largest part of it, which is pretty cool. So a little success story for me. But we are very fortunate tonight to have Courtney Allen, the content manager for LinkedIn Learning. And Courtney builds the resources that exist on LinkedIn and has 15 years of experience in this space. And we're just so very excited that Courtney has some time tonight to share a Rock Your Profile workshop with all of us. And it should be 30 to 40 minutes, I think, Courtney, and then maybe a little time for a Q&A at the end. So without further ado, Courtney, I'll turn it over to you if you want to share your screen, run us through this. I'm excited, and all of you here, follow along on LinkedIn, take notes. This is really great stuff, and this stuff can actually make you a lot of money down the road, seriously, if you pay attention. So thanks, Courtney, for being here.
Thank you. And if you give me just a second, I'm going to go back through and get the share settings to work. I think we got it. Okay, can you see my screen? Wonderful, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you for the introduction, Steve. I also have a late breaking update to my job title. I'm going to be a senior content manager, but it is not quite official, so it's not yet on my LinkedIn page. Stay tuned for updates. I work on our technology content for LinkedIn Learning, so I'm also in the realm of education. We create learning content for continuous learning on technology topics that cover system administration, networking, database administration, and DevOps. I used to cover security, so a lot of the topics that you're talking about are really relevant to me. But I'm here today to talk about how to craft a strong LinkedIn page and how to use LinkedIn beyond just creating your own profile. So our agenda this evening is going to be getting to know LinkedIn a bit more about some of the value there, why LinkedIn. We're going to spend the main portion of our time on your profile, your story, so that you can learn how to best create a strong profile. Then we're going to talk about beyond LinkedIn profile, which will be things like following influencers, following companies you're interested in working for, using LinkedIn to research companies and emerging trends. And then we're going to leave some time for questions throughout. I'd also encourage you to put questions in the chat as they come up. I will pause and see if I can answer them as we move through. So feel free to ask questions as they come up. So first up, the mission of LinkedIn is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. In this way, we can kind of democratize things in a sense. Steve mentioned that your network has a big impact on your career success. I can say that's been very true for me, but not everybody has equal opportunity. And by putting people in this virtual space together, we can help equalize that. It's not all about where you grew up. It's not all about your family connections. You can make those connections and they can be really powerful for your career. And our mission is to connect the world's professionals to make them more productive and successful. I'm gonna, just give me 1 second. I'm gonna move how the window for the meeting is showing up against my presentation, if you'll give me a sec. Don't we love video conferencing tools?
No, take your time.
Okay. So why LinkedIn? We are here to connect you to opportunity. Opportunity can look different, right? It may be connecting with the right person to find a mentor. It may be finding your next job. It may be building new skills on LinkedIn Learning. It can be building your professional identity. It really has a lot to do with where you are in your career journey and what your priorities are, but we offer all of those opportunities. We are not an end-all be-all solution, but we can be a stepping stone to help connect you to opportunity. Steve and I were just kind of talking about this briefly. We get a lot of questions from people about, is LinkedIn the only tool that I should be using? Absolutely not. There are still opportunities to meet people for coffee, to connect with people at conferences and other events, meetups. So LinkedIn is not your end all be all. It is one tool in your tool belt, and if you use it well, it will serve you well. So let's talk about some of the power of LinkedIn. We have a lot of data. We do a lot of reporting on what's happening. You'll see reports from our editorial team that'll talk to you about the trends. For example, like what are the trending skills in the IT realm, or what are top soft skills that employers are looking for? Those are all data-driven insights that can help connect you to opportunity. And this starts with our professional community where, and I think this is slightly dated material, we had 740 million members when I last pulled this data in over 200 countries and territories. We have over 57 million companies who have a presence on LinkedIn. Over 14 million jobs are posted. Over 38,000 skills are included for you to use on your profile to talk about what your strengths are, what your experiences are. Over 120,000 schools have a presence on LinkedIn, and we see over 443 billion shares. And that was from calendar year 2020. I know those figures have gone up. But as you can tell, there's a lot happening on LinkedIn, and because of that, you also want to make sure that you're using it well to find the information that's best suited to you. So as we talked earlier, this is going to be the meat of the presentation, talking about your profile and telling your story. It is, when we talk about LinkedIn, some people call it a social media site, some call it professional networking. There's a lot of different ways that we can talk about it. Your profile specifically is best viewed as a digital portfolio that represents you and tells your professional story. You might think of it less as a resume and more as a dynamic portfolio that's engaging, visual, it's evolving at all times. It highlights your experience and skills to help build your professional presence. I would actually argue that you should probably be updating your resume frequently. That's something that's always good to have done and to keep updated. You never know when an opportunity may come to you. But LinkedIn does make it very easy, right? You don't have to deal with the formatting of your resume. You don't have to deal with some of those other things to keep evolving your story. So let's jump into some of the specifics. One of the most meaningful things you can do is to add a photo to your profile. We know that members with a photo get up to 9 times more connection requests, more than 21 times more profile views, 36 times more messages. So how can you create a strong photo? You want to make sure that you choose something that represents you. I often get questions from people about, does it need to be really buttoned up? Do I need to wear a suit? Do I need professional headshots? One, that's highly dependent on industry. If you're trying to get a job in banking, you want a more polished profile. If you're looking for a role in a creative aspect, you want something that represents you creatively. So think strategically about where you're going and choose your photo accordingly. We do recommend that it's something that has good lighting and something that's high resolution. If you have professional headshots, great, go use them, but it's not a requirement at all. We do actually have some tools built into LinkedIn that you can use to edit those, but we all know that there's a million opportunities for you to do that in other platforms. So it would just emphasize something that feels like it represents who you are. And after a photo, the next most important thing to update is we have a great new name pronunciation tool that you can use. I personally love this, especially because I work with a global group of instructors, and sometimes I just get it in my head that I'm going to mispronounce somebody's name that I well know how to pronounce, right? Like it's just this mindset that I want to make sure that I'm showing respect for others. And so it gives people an opportunity to do the same for you. So you can pronounce your name for others, and it is right on your LinkedIn profile, right at the top, so people can go easily do that. It's a great thing to do ahead of an interview as well, is to find someone else's. Make sure you're pronouncing their name correctly. This is a quick thing you can update on your mobile phone. It takes about 10 seconds. You want to make sure you're limiting background noise. Having your dog barking in the background is poor timing. And you want to make sure you don't hold the phone right in front of your face, because that will not be the best possible quality. So next up, we can add your industry. Industry is an interesting one, especially for those of you who may be looking to change careers or move into a new industry. One of my top tips for using LinkedIn is to think more about where you are going in the future, where you want to go, than where you are now. So you don't need to say, right now I'm in this, right? You don't have to over-explain. You don't need to use something that reflects where you are. What you want to do is reflect where you would like to go. We know that people who put the industry information on their profile receive up to 9 times more profile views, and more than 300,000 people search by industry on LinkedIn every single week. So that's a lot of search, a lot of opportunity for you to show up. If you're unsure what industry to put, I would suggest that you try to keep it broad. And my best advice is to go look at people in the role that you want most. Where are you going? What industry are they stating? I would check a few of them just to see how they've gone about adding this information and follow suit. If they are where you want to go, they are likely representing the industry that you want to include. We also know, this one is not on the slide, but members with industry information are discovered up to 38 times more in recruiter searches. Recruiters very heavily use the industry tool to find the right people. So carefully consider that you're putting the right information in for this field in your LinkedIn profile. This is one of my favorite new features. We have a feature that shows that you're open to work. What this does is, if somebody is looking at a list of potential employees or candidates for a role, or even if they're just scrolling through LinkedIn and you've posted something, it puts a little green circle around your profile picture and it says open to work. It makes it really clear at a glance that you are open to new opportunities, and recruiters know that you're probably more likely to respond to their messages, and thus they're more likely to reach out to you. To do this, you can go to your profile and you click on Add Profile section, select Intro, and click Looking for a New Job. You'll have the ability to specify the job title that you're looking for, or pinpoint locations you're interested in, and even select the job type, whether that be full-time or remote, or just some of the other criteria that you'd like to be considered for. You can also get really specific about your start date so that your community knows how quickly you're looking to land your next opportunity. That's fantastic as well if you're in a certificate program or you're in school and you know your end date is your availability date. You can absolutely put that information in. There are 2 ways that you can do this that are privacy minded. One is that you can share it with all LinkedIn members, and that means you will automatically have the green open to work stripe added to your profile photos, and everyone can instantly see that you're open to those new opportunities. The second option is to share with recruiters only. It will privately share only to recruiters, and it won't add the open to work green photo stripe to your profile photo. This means that, say you're in a current role and it feels a little uncomfortable that your current employer could know that you're looking, you can use the more private feature that just makes it more likely for recruiters to identify that you're looking for that next step. I'm going to pause real quick and see if there's any questions.
Yep, there was one question.
Sure.
Courtney, somebody is currently torn between like two different industries, and is it possible to list more than one industry on the profile?
Last I checked, it was not. I will also say, it's hard for me to look at that specifically because I'm in beta test as a LinkedIn employee. I got automatically added to all of these things. So what I see when I looked in LinkedIn is not necessarily what you see.
Mhm.
I would check the help files for that and see. I would also say that recruiters usually search by more than one industry unless it's a very specific skill set. So if there's two that are closely linked, a good recruiter is going to be looking at both. So it's more important to have something in the right realm than to get necessarily the exact right one.
Got it. And then another question we had is, how far out from your start date should you be broadcasting that you're ready to work?
As noted, you can put that date out there. It really depends on the industry that you're moving into, the job trends for that specific industry. I personally say, like, if you're in a certificate program and you're open to share that information, sooner is better, right? It can take time to build those connections. It can take time to get in for interviews. It all just takes time. So the sooner you get started and the more connections you're making in the meantime, the better. I would say there's a limit to that, right? Like I wouldn't say like in 2 years, I would like
Yes.
to do this thing. But 6 months is very fair game, right? Because a lot of employers are also thinking in advance and looking for the right talent.
Those are the only questions we've had at this time. So
Okay, great. So let's move on. And next up, we're going to talk about the summary section of your profile. So the summary section is an interesting one. People will often feel a little bit intimidated by this one. They're like, what do I put there? Right? It's kind of a wide open space. We suggest to think about it as the section where you can put your elevator pitch. It should include just a quick introduction of who you are, highlight maybe some of your accomplishments and aspirations. We do suggest you keep it short-ish, and you don't have to list everything you've ever done, but really think about the highlights, right? Say you have 2 minutes to talk to somebody really influential that you would love to work for. What are you going to tell them in those 2 minutes? And think about putting that here. We know that adding a summary at 40 words or more makes your profile more likely to turn up in a future employer search. So you don't want to go too short, but 40 words or more should be a pretty safe assumption. Once again, I will reiterate that thinking about where you would like to go moving forward is a fantastic way to use this, especially if you're making a career transition. In that case, you also want to think carefully, and we'll talk about this in the next couple sections, but you want to think carefully about what are transferable skills if you're making a transition that you have from your previous role that you can carry into your next role and use those as your biggest highlights. Sometimes people are like, oh, well, I want to make a really big change. We actually have some really interesting data about things like people moving, say, from a fast food role. If you want to move into, say, a customer service style role, they have about 70% transferable skills from one to the other, right? They're dealing with customers, they're dealing with complaints, they're dealing with project management at a low level, right? Like there's all these transferable skills, and sometimes we discount them in others and in ourselves, but think really strategically about how you can tie your previous experiences to where you want to go. And then also think about building those other skills through a variety of other tools. So let's talk about featured content. This is an interesting one. It's not always really relevant to everyone, but it's a great way. We talked about LinkedIn profile being a digital portfolio. Here's a great place to bring in something a little bit more dynamic. You can bring your story to life by pinning rich media content that you're proud of. You don't have to have created the content, right? So sometimes it may be that you're working for a company and you had a role in a big initiative, or it really speaks to you and you want to connect that to what you're doing. You can, if you have written blog posts or if you've been part of an initiative, maybe you were in a news story about something you did professionally, you can connect that. But it's just a place where you can put dynamic content and link to it. When we say rich media, we're defining that as like photos, videos, presentations. If you have a portfolio of say, like work you've done in a site like GitHub, you can include that here. But it's just a great way for you to link outside of LinkedIn and share additional text or video that gives context to your role and what you've done. And then next up, this is the section that most closely relates to a resume as we think of it. And this is where you detail your work experience. We know that people who have their most up-to-date positions receive 5 times more connection requests, 8 times more profile views, and 10 times more messages. So this is where you really want to highlight what you've done in the past and big, like the more detailed roles. So you're going to want to put the company, you're going to want to put the time frame, and you're going to want to cover your experience. What did you do while you were there? One of my best tips for this section is to think in terms of metrics, quantify what you have done as often as possible. A great example would be to say, I increased sales considerably. What does considerably mean? Like, if we have 4 resumes that come into us and 2 say considerably or significantly, and one says I boosted sales 40% in a 12-month time frame, I can assure you that the person that's going to get an interview is the person that said that they are going to, that they have quantifiable stats, especially if they might be able to say, compare that to the marketplace. The marketplace grew 6%. I grew my sales by 40% in 12 months. Throwing those numbers in completely changes the story that you're telling, and it lends credibility to what you've been able to accomplish. It's not always possible to do that, but I would also recommend that if you are in a role now, that as you're moving forward, you capture those bits and pieces of information from, say, performance reviews or big initiatives or projects closing, and put those on your LinkedIn profile now. So you are going to put all of that information into your work experience. We do recommend that if you maybe work for a small company or you're really making a big switch from one industry to the other, and you don't think that people are going to clearly understand what that company was or what they did, to be really explicit in explaining that, it's completely fair to say, I worked for company X, give a quick definition of what they do, and then move into your history. And once again, be thinking about moving forward. If you say had 10 core responsibilities in the role and 6 of them apply to where you want to go and maybe 4 don't, consider whether those 4 need to stay. Because if you're thinking about moving forward, how do you best set yourself up for those opportunities? Next up, let's talk briefly about volunteer experience. And I'm sorry, I forgot they keep changing my presentation on me, so it's going to show you how to do this. But I love that in this example, it says responsible for up to 25 clients, put those numbers in there. So for volunteer experience, I love this for people who are trying to get experience or to show that they have skill sets and maybe are having a tough time getting their foot in the door. We know that members who had volunteer experience get up to 6 times more profile views than those without. And 1 of every 2 hiring managers, or 50%, say that they consider volunteer experience equivalent to professional experience. So let that one sink in, right? You're having a hard time getting your foot in the door. Check in with a nonprofit that really resonates with you and see if you might be able to lend the skill set to them and prove to employers that you have the skill set that you need. I would also just say that most companies, look kindly upon people who are involved in their communities and are having a positive impact. So it's a win-win. Next up, this is really important. So add skills and get endorsed. We talked earlier that recruiters are much more likely to use skills along with industry to find the right contact, the right candidates. Members who add 5 or more skills receive up to 17 times more profile views. I can assure you that a lot of those are likely in the recruiter category. They're looking for the right candidates, and they're doing that by looking for the right skill sets. You can add quite a few. I don't know the latest number. I think you used to be able to do 40 or 50 skills. I do recommend that every so often you go in and just kind of check out what you have there and how they're ranked and how you've prioritized them. You control which skills get featured on your profile and which ones don't. So you can remove those even if other people say, oh, they do this thing, and that's not where you're going in the future. Maybe it is where you were in the past. Maybe somebody just misremembers, but you have complete control over what appears there and what does not. So think carefully about how you want to prioritize that. So that's just a great way to showcase what you're good at. And now let's chat about recommendations. Once again, recommendations are a great way to build credibility along with those quantifiable numbers. But if you can add quantifiable numbers and somebody that can speak to it on your LinkedIn profile, you've already made some great leeway towards being credible. Recommendations can feel a little bit uncomfortable for people, right? I think that's the most common blocker here is people like, oh, I don't want to do that. My best tip on this is if you say have a project that goes incredibly well, whether it be in school, for volunteer, or in work, and somebody reaches out and sends you a quick email and says, I just want to tell you that was a fantastic job. I really appreciated you doing XYZ. Ask them, thank you so much for sharing that. Would you mind sharing that on my LinkedIn profile as a recommendation? In that case, the recommendation is largely already written. All they have to do is jump over to LinkedIn and drop it in, and you're done. It was a very easy ask, somebody who has already praised you, and you can do that. Another thing is it's completely fair to go to someone and say, I am looking and making this change. I want people to understand that I have these 3 skill sets. Do you feel comfortable recommending me based on those, or even some portion of those? And then people know how to speak about you to help you get to the next step. People usually are really appreciative to have the guidance because, once again, like, what do I say about this person, right? I don't know how to best connect them to what they want to do next. When I'm asked to write recommendations, my first question is, can you send me a job description for what you want to do? That gives me the ability to step back and say, oh, well, it says these are the top 3 skills for this role. And I know from personal experience, this person has skills 1 and 2. So let me write about that. And then you know how to write them a great recommendation. I would also recommend that you don't wait to do this until you need that next job or until suddenly you're in a position where you need to make a fast exit. This is something you want to do consistently. I will say I was called out in one of these presentations for not doing that myself. So you'll see that I think it was, I don't know, like late last year, I went out and was like, okay, I need to get caught up because I can't make the recommendation and not do it myself. So that is something that I do regularly to make sure that I am keeping up with those skills. And I have actually had recruiters reach out to me on the strength of my recommendations. So it is impactful. Next, there are a few other little things you can include, including your location. I will say that that is less relevant now than it was 3 years ago, especially for roles that can be done remotely. And you can search for jobs for remote jobs on LinkedIn, but it can still be a great way to maybe identify opportunities or people you want to connect with regionally. Sometimes there's great meetups or just other opportunities you might get ripped into there. Education, absolutely. Not only can you include your education, if you do take like a LinkedIn learning course, it automatically shows up in your page, and it's a great way to show that maybe if there's a skill set you don't have for a job, that you're building it, right? It shows someone that you're out there trying to build those skills. Publications, I always feel like that's an odd one. It doesn't really relate to all industries, but if you have them, showcase them. Accomplishments. So maybe if there's something where you got like a community award or you received some award and it feels like a strange thing to include elsewhere, you were on Dean's list or other things, you can include that in the accomplishments section. And now that we've talked about the profile, I'm going to pause for questions, and then we'll move on to other ways you can leverage LinkedIn to build a strong network.
Yeah, so we had some really great questions come in. One of them is actually about our program, so our CWCT certificate program. Where would you suggest them listing the certificate? Would they put it under education? Would they put it under their licenses and certifications? I've seen it in lots of different places, so I think that was a great one.
I'm not terribly familiar with your program, but I would say the context I was given is that a lot of you are making like some big changes, right? Like you're moving into a new industry. So I would try and make that prominent. Like whether you put a little bit of information in your summary section that says, I'm reskilling or I'm part of this certificate program, but you want to make it really clear to people that you have taken the initiative to do this, right? This was important enough to you that you're taking your time and your effort and other resources and putting it into this program. It sounds like education might be an appropriate place to put it as well. And it can be more than one, right? If this is like the big thing that you're doing to make the change in your career trajectory, highlight it more than once.
Courtney, if you don't mind, I'll jump in really quick.
Please do.
I thought it was muted. No, I think that's great feedback, but just from like a perspective of what I've told people in the past, but since it's being asked here, and Courtney, for your information, our program's a certificate program. We offer a certificate, but we offer preps for certifications from third-party vendors. So to the students that are in this call, or if you're watching this recording, if you take a certification using one of our vouchers with CompTIA, Cisco, AWS, whoever, EC Council, make sure you add that definitely. And Courtney would tell you the licenses and certifications. You can even upload your, and I don't want to steal any thunder, Courtney, because you may cover this. You can put in your Credly or your Badger or Canvas credential. You'll get a digital badge with those certifications when you pass them. You can link that and show the credential and licenses and certs. But for education, I would recommend for now putting Purdue University, Northwest. And then if you want to, and Courtney, I don't know if this is recommended. I've told people to do this. You could tell me if this is silly, but putting in the program website, because we're kind of a niche program, if someone's curious about what the education is. But that's pretty much because we have a CWCT page, but because we're a grant funded program and, you know, it would take a while for us to build rapport as a consortium. So that's my recommendation, but anything you have to add, Courtney?
No, that's fantastic. I would say if you get a certification, like especially to say, you know, you get an AWS certification and you want to move into cloud, put that in your title, put that front and center, shout from the rooftops that you have been certified and that the organization has certified you, right? Because it shows not just that you took the classes, but that you passed the exam, and that has power with employers. So put that front and center. I think I'm required, since my husband was a Boilermaker, to shout go Boilermakers right now. But yes, put that it was through Purdue Northwest. And if you are a smaller program, we talked about if you work for a small business, you can put a little bit of context with that information to make sure that people understand it. Definitely do that. Just make sure that you make it really clear that you were building certain skills. And once again, shout from the rooftop if you get a certifications, and kudos to those of you going through that process.
And I didn't mean to, if I stole thunder from later in the presentation with the digital badges, but I think that is such a cool integration, if you can call it that, just for employers to actually verify that you actually passed, let's say your CompTIA A+, instead of just being on your resume. For everyone in this program takes that course and hopefully that certification exam, excuse me. And you have immediate verification from an employer. They don't have to ask for a copy of it or anything like that. I mean, you're good to go.
Sounds great. Thank you for jumping in with that additional context. It's helpful.
And then we had one other question about one of our participants works as a consultant, and they work with a lot of different clients. Should they list the clients in? Should they put how should they put that in their LinkedIn profile?
I would recommend, if it's a long list, choosing the top ones that are most recognizable. And that's because you don't want to weigh down the things specifically about you in a long list. But certainly if you have some impressive clients that has name recognition broadly, that can lend power to your credibility as well.
Good. I think that's all the questions. I think I got all of them.
Okay. Are you guys still able to do this? My side monitor is doing some interesting things for me over here. You can
Yeah,
still
your
see my slide deck,
presentation
right?
disappeared.
Is it back?
Not yet.
This is fun. Okay. I'm going to stop the screen share and find the tab because it disappeared somewhere at some point, and find you and restart. There you are. Okay.
Take your
Let
time.
me
And
do that
while
again.
you're doing that, I guess I'll fill the time really quickly. For those of you who are interested in what I was talking about, Amber probably has heard plenty of me. I'm really big into digital badges. I just think they're really cool, and they're very not just niche, but they're becoming more mainstream. And for Credly, for example, if you're curious on my profile, I've got one in my licenses and skills that you can verify the credential, and it shows you this little page. And then that takes you to a whole another list of finding, keywords in what you trained on versus what an employer's looking for. Digital badging is very cool. It's, again, another great thing LinkedIn has offered. I don't know if that's a new, Courtney, but
It's definitely something that's being highlighted. I think I need to check the power cord for this. So I'm gonna just step out of my headphones for 1 second and be right back. So I'm gonna let you talk, Steve.
you're completely fine. No
Yeah.
problem. And I guess the only thing to blab about, and I kind of wanted to say this anyways, so it's not really filling time. If this seems intimidating to anybody, and when I say intimidating, I know that when I first started this job, I didn't have a LinkedIn profile that I used. I think I had a college professor years ago when I was in my undergrad say, if you make a LinkedIn profile for your final, you get an extra 10% onto your grade or something ridiculous. And you add a few classmates, and I didn't touch it for years. And there was a detriment to that, to my own professional growth, probably in my early 20s. But this in the last year and a half, I've kind of built everything. So what I would say is that establishing connections, creating these things on your LinkedIn profile, don't feel like you have to have it like shiny and perfect and polished today. Mine's not even close to that, and it's been a year and a half in the working. But be patient with it, take time, and you will eventually have a lot of connections, and you'll have meaningful connections and people you can rely on, and communities that you're involved in, or groups, I should say, Courtney. I should use the right economy of language here.
Yeah. Well, can everybody see my slides?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so
Segue
we'll
done.
see.
All you.
Thank you. We'll see, maybe it's time for a new secondary monitor. But I would say when we talk, that LinkedIn is one of these tools in your tool belt, like all of the other tools in networking and building career trajectory, you get what you put in. And it doesn't have to be something that you're on LinkedIn every day, but just, jumping in once a month even, and making sure that things are up to date, especially in a marketplace where certain skill sets are harder to find and recruiters may be looking for the right people. It benefits you to have those things there. I can say that when I started teaching Rock Your Profile more often, I was paying more attention to my profile, and the amount of recruiters that were reaching out to me grew in accordance with that. Which is a strange thing when you work for LinkedIn and other people are reaching out to you on LinkedIn to see if you want to work with them. But yeah, you get what you put into it. And just like I was saying, don't wait to get recommendations until you need them. I would say don't wait to work on your LinkedIn until you need it, because it's something best done consistently over time. So I'm going to jump over and talk just a little bit about some of the other ways you can use LinkedIn. So the first one is you can build some thought leadership on LinkedIn if you are at a place in your career where that feels normal. And that can be either a very short format or a longer format. So it's just a place where you can share insights and expertise and opinions with your professional community. You mentioned that someone is a consultant. LinkedIn is a great tool for consultants to be sharing information and expertise. So what does that look like? You can share updates or you can publish posts. Things have been a little bit more complicated since this presentation was last updated, because we now have creator mode and more tools that are available to creators. But we roughly have two different types of content. The first is updates, where you can kind of share quick perspectives. And the second opportunity is to cover things in more depth and more detail through publishing, similar to a blog format. So the primary difference here is that sharing updates is a very quick way for you to share knowledge. It's more akin to Twitter. And then publishing content is a way for you to explore a topic by writing a more long form post. I'm going to briefly go over how to best use those. So to share a status update, you simply start on your LinkedIn page and go to the home page. You'll see a box at the top where you can share. If you're trying to get started and it feels awkward, I love the idea of using a question. And you might say, I'm at this career stage. I am trying to think about what is the next skill that I need to add when I just learned this, right? And then ask your network, give them the opportunity to weigh in. Personally, I have the best success when I say, here's this problem that I've been trying to solve and what I've done so far. What other tips do you have, right? So it doesn't have to be, I am the preeminent expert on topic X, and I'm going to tell you how to solve all your problems. It can be very conversational. So let's just talk really quickly about the things that you can do effectively to help status updates get a little bit more attention on the feed. Some best practices for sharing updates are try to use your authentic voice, right? People have radar for that. And if it feels inauthentic, they're less likely to engage. We do see that you have more success if you post frequently, and that's because people start feeling like they have more of an ongoing relationship with you versus just, oh, I don't remember who this is or why I connected with this person. So you start really building a professional brand. Start a conversation or share your point of view. So starting a conversation is a great way to go. Include media, so include a photo or include a video is a great way to get better engagement. And then I love this one, and it is simply to create an opportunity for reciprocity. So even if you're sharing your viewpoint, you might say at the end, how do you deal with this in your professional life? Or what are you learning next? Or ask a question. And then when people comment, you are going to have better engagement if you respond to them, right? It just builds that relationship with them, and they're more likely to be involved with you later, or they may even be more likely to think of you the next time they have a related opportunity. So it's more than just, oh, let's have a conversation today. It's really about building those long-term connections with people. And then let's just talk briefly about how you can use publishing in a similar fashion or a different fashion.
Hey, Courtney, I don't want to
Sure.
like stop you there, but I think that last point, if you don't mind going back to that last slide,
Sure, let's do
I
it.
think that's like a really, like, I think posting in general is just something that I think is worth, I don't know if anybody wants to just jump in or have a question here, but I think that this is when you're going on LinkedIn, this is kind of the heart of the feed, right? So
Mhm.
beyond just adding people, going to their profile, sending messages, the feed is something that I still struggle with navigating. Like, am I just going, am I going through and commenting just to kind of collaborate and just create conversation? Creating an original post, I never know what to do. And in my current role, it would seem kind of no brainer, the things I could talk about or the things I could reshare. So I think this is kind of a tough thing to navigate, especially for those that are not used to social media, including myself. So I guess the posting thing, I don't want to put you on the spot, but like talk a little more about that. I feel like that's kind of that seems like a big piece of LinkedIn.
Sure. It really depends what you're trying to do with LinkedIn, right? You want to make sure that you're aligning your efforts with your goals. I can say that this is something that was uncomfortable to me for a while, where I was like, what do I have that people want to say, right? It feels a little bit awkward. I'm an introvert by nature. So that felt awkward too. And I would just say, think about your professional brand first, right? What do you want to be known for? What do you want people to come to you with questions about or to have a conversation about and share those things? And I also think it can be really easy to overthink it or to let like a concern like how is this going to come to others, right? And largely those things are things we conflate in our own heads compared to things that are actual concerns, right? So I say start small. It can be easy, right? You can share an article and say, wow, I can't stop thinking about this quote from this article, right? And here's why, or here's how this relates. And you can start just, right, by sharing other people's content and putting your own spin on it is one of the easiest ways that you can jump in and have an impact today. But it does start to build a brand. And the more consistently you do it, the more people start associating you with those things. So I work on LinkedIn Learning content. The most common thing you're going to see me do is say, shout out to my new instructor who just completed this new Linux networking course. You want this course if, and giving just a little bit of information about that. I don't know, it's not going to go viral, right? Like that's not my goal. It's one, to shout out my instructors. Two, to capture an audience of people interested in those topics so I can let them know about other courses. And so you really want to start with what are your professional goals and fill in how you're going to approach it from there.
I think that's
I will just say, I put it on my
Yeah.
to-do list to post. Make sure that I hold myself accountable.
No, I think I really appreciate what you're talking about. I mean, you're kind of putting more context on why you're posting. Because I think in my mind, I've said, I don't know if anyone else feels this way. I should post because I should just, create organic engagement with other people and network. And then I end up seeing a post and I'm like, oh, I'll repost that with my thoughts. Oh, wait, that's too political. Wait, am I going to get in trouble for that? Who's going to think something about that because I work for the government? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think that you're steering it towards what are your professional goals, and even starting with just shout outs or thank yous or kind of public. Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, honestly, I'm framing this as if it's a group question, but it's kind of my question. But I really
Totally
appreciate you,
fair.
Courtney. I think that's a really great point. I didn't mean to lose any steam here on your presentation.
No, totally fine. I mean, I told you at the beginning, this works best when it's conversation. So fantastic. I'm going to go quickly. Okay, let's see. Okay, quickly over publishing. This is longer form content, and I know this group is largely just kind of getting started. So this may not be where you start. So we'll make it quick. If you publish something on LinkedIn, it becomes part of your profile. It gets shared with your full network, and it reaches the largest group of professionals assembled online, which is LinkedIn. So how does publishing work? You start once again on your homepage. It's similar to sharing a status update. And I'm going to just cover briefly some quick tips so that you know best practices for this too. This one always gets me because I spent many years in book publishing, and headlines are tricky, even for those of us who make a career of it. So it says, create a headline that captures attention. I will say, first and foremost, go for clarity. Are people going to understand what you're talking about? We're not trying to create clickbait. We're trying to create value for others. So think about exactly why you're creating the content. Who is your audience? What are they looking for? What is the value you're creating? And that is where your headline should start. If you want to make it quippy or witty from there, go for it. But first and foremost, clarity. A photo is more likely to get more attention just because people are naturally visually inclined. So add something relevant if you can. Be authentic. Once again, use your own voice. People have a radar for that. And you're also building your own professional brand. So go for authenticity. Think about your audience. If you're creating content on any platform ever, this is something that you should be doing already. Who's your audience? What are you trying to communicate to them? And go forward from there. And the last is the article length matters. Specifically, the sweet spot, if you're creating an article on LinkedIn, it's 600 to 1,000 words. So not terribly long, but that's where we've seen the most success from a data perspective. And you can also track progress. So maybe if you're just getting started with posting, or you're just getting started with articles and you're like, well, is this working? Is this not working? you can go see what's being effective and how that's working for you. And you can just click on the view stats button with your published article to pull up the analytics and track progress. You can also just keep an eye on whether you're getting more connection requests or building your network, because that's also a measure of success. So I want to have room for questions, so I'm going to just speed through this next part, but you should also be using LinkedIn to investigate and stay on top of trends. So this is a way that you can follow companies and understand what's important to them. You also have complete control over what you follow or don't follow on your feed to make sure that you're getting the content that serves you best in an effective manner. So follow companies. If you're moving into a new role and you know some employers that are top employers that you might be interested in working for either now or even years in the future, follow them now. What's going to happen is you're going to start getting a better sense of what their priorities are, what their professional brand is, how they're presenting themselves. Those are all things that you want to take into consideration as you craft your resume, as you create your own professional brand, and as you move into interviews. You should always research the companies that you are going to interview with before you go into interviews, and LinkedIn is a great way to do that. You simply follow the company's page by searching for them and then hitting follow. You can do the same for influencers. I always love this one because I think they always show Bill Gates as an example. And I'm not about to go send Bill Gates a connection request, but I may want to follow just to understand what he's talking about or where things are going in the industry. That's also a great tool if you're going to interview for a role. You might be able to follow some key people in leadership with that company. You can also use advanced search filters to find something specific that works for you. You can also get news and follow content. And I'm going to stop there for questions.
Nothing in chat so far.
I'm gonna turn off my presentation and be a person.
Somebody did ask, is it worth using the paid version when you're just starting out and you're just creating your profile?
I would say there's like specific use cases for that. You get a lot of features in the free version, right? Like if you create your profile and you're mainly looking to connect with people just as a primary network, I wouldn't say it's necessary. Some people like it because you can send more like in-mail style things, but I think that's a little bit less usual, especially if you're just getting started. So I wouldn't say it's necessary. If you're going to be sending a lot of in-mail, if you are looking to do recruiting, if you're using some of those premium tools, yes, but that doesn't sound like the most common use case here.
Courtney, quick question for you. More of a prompt. I believe I got 1 year of premium for free because I have a ID.me, I think is the veteran.
Yeah, there is a veteran program, and I believe, to my knowledge, that's still standing. So if you're a veteran, you get a free year of premium that also comes with LinkedIn Learning. So if say you're doing a certificate program and you want additional resources to build beyond that, you would have access to the full LinkedIn Learning library. And as I noted, that shows on your profile. So say you're going into a job interview, you have the base skills, you need this other skill you don't have. Great thing to do, whether you're doing it through LinkedIn Learning or another tool, is to say, I don't exactly have this skill set, but I'm developing it through this, this, and this. And you list what you're doing proactively to build that skill set.
Excellent.
But yeah, I can see if I can find, there is a link somewhere. I may just email it to you later so that I can stay engaged right now.
Yeah, that'd be great. It was easy for me because I already set that ID.me up to get my Lowe's discount.
Yeah.
That's primo if you're a vet and you don't use the 10% at Lowe's. So I have another question. So endorsements, and I don't think you covered it tonight. Maybe you did, and I apologize if you did. And I'll speak completely just unfiltered. In my network, endorsements are sometimes not something that every generation does. Maybe that's the best way to say it. or at least generations of LinkedIn users is what I mean. Because I don't mean generation by age, but people that have been on LinkedIn for a while seem to have the endorsements. But if you're newer to LinkedIn, it's like, oh, I don't have any, but are these even used anymore? What's your
It's
thoughts?
more important to have the right skills listed than to have endorsements. So I wouldn't worry too much if people aren't jumping on your page and endorsing you for skills. I will agree, right? Like that feels like something that happened more in the past. Where people were more likely. I think we used to prompt people at one point to say, like, do you want to endorse this person for this skill? We actually now have things like skills assessments where you can take a LinkedIn exam on top skills like using Excel or Python or some other things where you can get a LinkedIn assessment that verifies that you have information. So if you really want to verify a skill set using something, that's going to be more impactful to employers than say endorsements. In fact, we have worked with a few employers who prioritize that. So
That's great. I have one question here. I'll hop in, and you might have a better answer than I do, but the question was, what's the best way to touch base with recruiters? But you didn't ask this, did you, Amber? I'm sorry.
Nope.
No,
doesn't
sorry.
sound
My
familiar.
apologize. What's the best way to touch base with recruiters before or after applying? In my experience from talking to students and my own personal experience, it's about the way you do it. If you reach out to a recruiter and just kind of ask, how do I get the job? Obviously, you don't want to do that. If you are reaching out to somebody based on a network or a connection through a connection and you're asking for advice or thoughts, or you have a specific question about the industry and maybe you ask, hey, do you know anyone that could get me some information on roles like this? Then you could reach out before applying because you might get a referral. And a
Yeah.
referral with some jobs, even in this job market, it still can get you far. But I would say after LinkedIn kind of can be a little bit weird if someone's like on your hiring panel too, right, Courtney? So that you probably have some thoughts on how to navigate that, right?
Yes. So a few things. If you're going to connect with anyone, it's always helpful to put a short note in there with some context. Right. It doesn't require that you do that. And sometimes people can infer why somebody might be connecting, but it's fantastic to say, hi, I'd love to be connected because I'm interested in what you're doing with this, or I'd love to, follow for this. The other thing we'll add is most people are open to say giving you 20 minutes of their time if you're very specific about what you're looking for. They're less likely to say, sure, I'll meet with you when it's not really clear. Like, one, people don't want you to sell them something. And two, they just need that context. So I do encourage people, if there's somebody you really admire, especially if you've maybe engaged with them a little bit on the platform or you've met them through some other capacity, but a few things. One, give them context. Two, make a specific ask. And three, try and create value for them. And what that might mean is, say, you connect with someone in your network, they're way higher than you feel a little bit uncomfortable. You see an article that feels really relevant to something they were talking about. Hey, that's made me think of that conversation we had, or that post you put a few months ago. It adds value to them and keeps the connection open without always being asking of them, right? You're kind of creating reciprocity and value there. Is that helpful? I feel like your question was kind of multi-layer.
It was, let's see, whose question was that? Gotta go back up. I think that was a great
Recruiters. I
answer.
don't think we really touched on recruiters. You want to be as direct as possible about your skill sets and why you're connecting. Recruiters are busy people, especially in the current workplace. It's fantastic. Even if you connect with a recruiter and the job doesn't work out, keep that connection open, right? Reach out. If it doesn't work out, say, thank you so much. I want to make sure I captured why this didn't work out, right? Or I want to capture why I wasn't interviewed. If you can share that, they may respond to you, they may not respond to you. It can't hurt to do that. And it shows that you're proactive and that you're on top of things, and it can help you the next time.
Hey, Courtney, that's a great answer. I have one more question in the comments. I think it's a great one too. And I'll give a little context here. Is it good practice to attempt to connect with someone you follow? And it's really not a negative feedback on LinkedIn, obviously, at all. I think it's great features, but I'm kind of confused on that too. Like, I turn on creator mode a while back because there were really great features that came with turning that on for
Mhm.
featuring things and for posting and all that. But then when I show up on someone's profile, like if y'all saw mine tonight, it says Steve prefers to be followed. I don't really care. Connect, follow, so I think that is, unless someone has like 20,000 followers or a
Yeah.
million, it's like, it's kind of something to navigate. What are your thoughts on that? I think that is a good question.
It really depends. So that is a newer feature. It didn't always exist to have creator mode. Creator mode wasn't really a thing 10 years ago. It's a fine line. I think it really depends what you're looking to get from that relationship. It looks like if you've met the person in person and you think they will likely remember you, right? Not that you waved at them across the room and never exchanged names, but if you talk to them, I say connect. Always connect if you can. If it's somebody with a really big following, right? Like we're talking superstars in tech, you're going to follow them, right? And there may be opportunities for connection there, but you're less likely to get their attention for a variety of reasons, including the volume of people coming in and out of their profile and the volume of just interaction that they're seeing. That's one thing that creator mode does, is it sort of decreases some of that noise if you have thousands and thousands of followers. But once again, it's all strategy, right? Is this somebody that you really need to have interaction with, or is this somebody that you just want to keep tabs on to see where they're going?
It's a perfect answer. I think it clarifies from personally what I was asking too. So I appreciate that. I'm going to ask one more question just because we're over time and I want to be mindful of your time and everyone else's. David asked, does it really make a difference if you do LinkedIn assessments? And I think that's in reference to if you put something on your skills, like if you put Microsoft Word, for example, you can take that test and it shows that you actually can use Word. And I'm not doing the Excel test actually, because I don't really want
That's a tough one, actually. That's like kind of
Yeah.
ethically tough
Yeah,
here
no, thanks.
professionally. That one comes up as a team. We're like, I took that one, I didn't pass. So
Yeah,
you really need to be a pro at something. It depends on the employer. I think I mentioned we have a couple of employers who have used this in lieu of, say, a university degree. Like, we're not going to put a requirement that you have a university degree, but if you pass these assessments, we're going to put you in the pool of people to consider without a degree, sort of thing. They usually clearly state that. And I'd say if you have work history that shows you have that skill set, then it's less important. If you're trying to show credibility in a completely new realm, it can't hurt. Right? You want people to understand that you know cybersecurity. I know we have a cybersecurity assessment. If you don't have those certifications, if you don't have the professional history, it's just one more thing that adds credibility. But I'm not aware of many places where that would be a requirement. It's just another tool that you can use to show credibility.
That's excellent. And I did not know there was a cybersecurity assessment. Wink, wink. Everyone in this call probably should take that. That can't hurt. Well, Courtney, and for those of you that have questions, Courtney, if I know you shared your LinkedIn, so I'm sure you're willing to possibly
Please
touch
feel
base.
free to connect. I will say I'm happy to try and help people individually, schedule allowing. So I am a strong proponent of reach out to people and see if they can help you. So my door is open.
That I wasn't going to volunteer you for that, but I'm glad you did. That is an amazing offer. To those that first, Courtney, thank you so much for your time. Seriously, I know you have a very busy schedule, and this is really valuable stuff, and this is a demographic that is not only important because we are a lot of adult learners and second degree learners and transitioning military, but also because this is a workforce development issue, and we're trying to fill the need for more cyber people in the U.S. for national security reasons, right?
Yeah, I ran a conference for a couple of years, and I'm still involved in the cybersecurity community. So absolutely, so glad that you're doing the work you're doing.
Amazing, yeah, I think it is great, and I appreciate that, and I really appreciate your time to work with these students, and to the students that came out tonight and on a Wednesday, let's call it Thursday or Friday, whatever day we want to call it. Thank you for taking the time to come out to this workshop. I really hope that it was valuable. It was personally for me, and I'm at work right now, but it was helpful for me at a personal professional level. Is that a thing? Did I say that right? So thank you, Courtney, for helping me, and hopefully everyone else got some help here. I am also a resource for C+. I shouldn't use C+ because it's a computer science program, but I'm a B- LinkedIn guy. So if Courtney's not available, maybe I can help a little bit, but this is expert stuff and I really appreciate your time. So thank you all. Thank you, Courtney. Hopefully you'll consider doing this again in the future.
I would gladly. I'm going to do a quick shout out that there is a LinkedIn learning course called Rock Your Profile, and it is free whether you have access to LinkedIn Premium or not. So whether you want to go refresh some of those tips or whether you know somebody else who might benefit from it, it's a completely free resource to help people strengthen their LinkedIn profile. So it's a tool as well.
Courtney, thank you so much. And to all of you,
Yeah.
thank you. Enjoy your evening. I'm going to close the recording. If anybody needs to stay on, I'll stay on for a few minutes.